In 1986, a Dutch historian named Apulinus Boonstra was sorting through old municipal records on the Isles of Scilly, a tiny archipelago off the southwest tip of England, when he found something that made his hands stop moving. According to the documents, the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly had been technically at war since 1651. No peace treaty had ever been signed. Not once in 335 years had anyone thought to end it. The war had simply been forgotten. Completely, embarrassingly, absolutely forgotten. No shots had been fired. No one had died. But legally, formally, on paper, a war between England and Holland had been sitting in the background of European history like an unpaid bill nobody opened. And nobody taught you this. Because the people who write textbooks assumed wars had endings. This one didn't. Here's what actually happened. And it is stranger than anything your history teacher ever mentioned. It is 1651. England is in the middle of its own civil war. The Royalists, loyal to the executed King Charles I, have been crushed on the mainland. But a Royalist fleet, desperate and outnumbered, retreats to the Isles of Scilly. They anchor there. They begin raiding Dutch shipping in the English Channel. The Dutch are furious. Admiral Martin Tromp, yes, the same Tromp who would become one of the most celebrated naval commanders in European history, sails to the Scillies with a full war fleet. He arrives. He demands reparations from the Royalists for every Dutch ship they have plundered. The Royalists laugh at him. They have nothing. They are broken, and hiding on a cluster of granite islands in the Atlantic. Tromp cannot get a single coin out of them. So on the 30th of March, 1651, he does the only thing left to him. He formally declares war. Not on England. Not on the English Parliament. On the Isles of Scilly specifically. A declaration of war against roughly 2,000 people living on a handful of windswept rocks. Then, within weeks, the parliamentary forces of Oliver Cromwell defeat the Royalists. The Royalists surrender. The fleet scatters. And Tromp sails home, without ever firing a single shot, without signing any peace, without resolving anything at all. The declaration sat in Dutch archives. The Scillies went on existing. 300 years passed. If this surprised you, subscribe right now. Every week we cover the history they never taught you. The real stories behind the events that shaped the world. Now here is the second layer. Because this is not just a funny footnote. This is actually a window into how European diplomatic history was held together, or failed to be held together, by paperwork that nobody revisited. The Peace of Westminster in 1654 ended the First Anglo-Dutch War between England and the Netherlands proper. But nobody checked whether every single territorial declaration had been resolved. Nobody looked at the Scillies file. It was a bureaucratic oversight at a moment when England and Holland had bigger problems, trade wars, colonial competition, the entire future of the Atlantic economy to argue about. One small archipelago simply slipped through the gap. And here is what makes it genuinely eerie. Between 1651 and 1986, England and Holland fought 3 more major wars. 3. The Second Anglo-Dutch War ended in 1667. The third ended in 1674. The fourth ended in 1784. Each time, peace treaties were negotiated. Each time, diplomats met in rooms full of candlelight and argued over islands, colonies, trading rights. Each time, the Isles of Scilly were never mentioned. The war that Tromp had declared sat underneath all of it, unresolved, invisible, like a fault line nobody knew was there. When Boonstra found the documents, he contacted the Dutch embassy in London. He wanted to know if the war was technically still active. The embassy checked. They confirmed it. No peace treaty specific to the Scillies had ever been signed. The Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly were, on the books, still at war. It had been 335 years. The response was not panic. It was delight. On the 17th of April, 1986, the Dutch ambassador Rein Heidekoper sailed to the Isles of Scilly. He met the island council. He signed a formal declaration of peace. He reportedly joked that it must have been terrifying, living under the threat of Dutch invasion for 3 centuries. The islanders laughed. Somebody opened a bottle of something. The longest war in history, with 0 casualties, was officially over. But here is why this actually matters beyond the laugh. It reveals something true about how history is made and unmade. The conflicts we remember are the ones that ended with ceremony, battles, surrenders, treaties, monuments. The ones that faded without resolution simply disappeared from the record. History is not just what happened. It is what someone decided to write down, follow up on, and file correctly. Entire chapters of the past exist only because a bureaucrat somewhere did their job. And entire chapters vanished because they didn't. The Silly's story is the funny version of that truth. But that same mechanism, the misplaced document, the unresolved clause, the forgotten declaration, has caused actual bloodshed in places where nobody laughed. Borders in the Middle East. Colonial land claims in Africa. Maritime disputes in the South China Sea. The mechanism is identical. The stakes are just higher. The islands themselves have a population of around 2,200 people today, almost identical to 1651. They grow flowers. They run boat tours. They have a museum. And somewhere in that museum, they have kept the memory of the day an ambassador arrived to end a war that had been running quietly in the background for longer than the United States has existed. Admiral Tromp sailed home and forgot about them. 335 years later, someone finally remembered to say sorry. If you want more history like this, the real version, the version they didn't put in the textbook, subscribe and hit the bell. Because next week, we are opening another file that has been sitting in the wrong drawer for far too long.